1.
There is always going to be something really special about making things with your hands, about creating something physical, about having a physical object that you can hold and say, this is something that I made, that I put time into, and now I get to have it around. That's why I cosplay. That's why I put that's why my projects balloon to end up being like way bigger than they ever are, because I don't wear costumes once and then send them to the thrift store. I make costumes knowing that I could be wearing them for 5-10 years.
Right.
And it's great. I love making things with my hands. It's the best.
Hell yeah. For Audio Technica and AT1 Radio, this is At Some Time Somewhere. I'm Jacob Derwin, and today I'm joined by Lizard Leigh. They're a video creator and internet personality whose cosplay and deep dive videos have captured the attention of millions. You can find them at Hey Lizard Leigh across Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Lizard, welcome to the show.
Hello. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. It's so good to see you. How you doing? What's new?
I'm doing great. I've been up late sewing all this week. It really is one of those weeks where I'm like, feel like I have been very in my element finishing up this most recent video.
So for those of us in the future, what is this most recent project?
I'm working on a video about the downfall of JoAnn Fabrics, much like everyone else in our niche over on YouTube. I really meant for this to be a really short project. It was supposed to be a mystery box crafting experience because my best friend works at a JoAnn's. So we hatched the scheme, he lives in Michigan, that he would put together a blind box of materials and I would have to make something out of whatever was in the box. However, as is often the YouTube way, once I started actually doing the research into the history of JoAnn's and started watching the other YouTube videos that are out there about this company, I became deeply obsessed with it, and I have accidentally turned my brain into like 80% facts about the JoAnn's company history and the nature of private equity and like the history of sewing and textile industry in America. So it's going to be a fun project. I'm excited for it to finally see the light of day since I've full-time been working on it now for several weeks.
Do you have any part of you that, like, from you're best known for cosplay and costume design and things like that, and you're doing a video that, yes, it's a company that does that sells materials, but you're talking about enterprise, capitalism. Is this something you have any background in? Did you take 2 classes in journalism in college or something? What was the
capitalism? No, I'm not qualified at all. But I think that honestly, like, I do come from kind of like a writing background, a theater background. So this sense of like, when I watched the JoAnn's videos, I was struck by the fact that a lot of the videos, and this is no shade whatsoever, but a lot of the videos from crafters would kind of list the facts about the company as a like an aside, as a kind of like, you could tell they were saying that because you have to say that in a video about facts. And then you could tell that the videos from the retail history guys, from the guys that cover like capitalism, private equity, really didn't understand the crafting community and why JoAnn's being lost was such a big deal. So I just kind of became obsessed with the idea of making functionally a one-stop shop video that was about all of the above, because they do intersect in really interesting ways. And I think it's more that I have a brain that likes to chase down ideas and find the answer in something. And luckily, YouTube in 2025 is kind of the platform for content about that. So I've been thinking a lot about like the nature of creative nonfiction and the way that my work in the niche of cosplay stuff kind of dovetails into that. Because I've also discovered that I just find that more rewarding artistically than talking about my own sewing. Because when I talk about my sewing, I'm kind of like, I stitched it this way, I did this. And I prefer that stuff to kind of speak for itself. So it's still about that. That's still the foundation. But talking more about like the history of fandoms and the history of how cosplay became that way, I find a lot more interesting and it feels more exciting.
Yeah. You touched on something, which is the current nature of YouTube, rewarding creative nonfiction. We are in an era, for those who are completely unaware of this stuff, I apologize. YouTube, like any social network, ebbs and flows. Its algorithms, the things that are rewarded, what gets more money from advertising, short form versus long form, viewers versus subscribers. These things change constantly and have changed constantly over, 2 decades at this point or something like that?
2 decades, wow.
So when we're talking about like long form creative content and video essays, we've hit this kind of this moment in internet culture where there are many popular YouTube channels that are dedicated to like long, like TV to movie length videos about a topic. And it wasn't always that way before. The common thinking for years before this was like, well, you can't be more than 10 minutes or people will stop watching.
No one's going to watch after 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I remember that being the way for years.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I never really thought about YouTube as a thing that I wanted to do with my time because I didn't watch YouTube. So it's kind of that thing of like, you should always make the art that you want to watch. So I was realizing this year, actually, I recently rewatched almost all of Unraveled by Brian David Gilbert, which was a web series on Polygon in like 2019, 2018. And I realized that me watching that was what made me be like, oh, if someone is making this kind of content that's like really funny, really well researched, kind of like taking these absurd analytical angles about video games, I was like, I really enjoy watching this. And I also think that, not that I like could make that, but I'm like, there's something here. There's an audience for this kind of content. And the more I started to watch YouTube, the more I realized that sense of like, oh, I could do this. I have a background in film production. I have like an understanding of the technology that goes into it. I enjoy film editing. So that's kind of how we got here.
I believe you've been cosplaying for over 15 years now. So what was the initial push? What was the initial interest?
So the initial interest was that I grew up in Baltimore County, and my grandmother and I would always, me and my sister and my mom and my grandmother, we would always do these kind of trips on the light rail down to Baltimore City's Inner Harbor. And they were like very fond childhood memories. And I always remember there being this one weekend out of the summer when there were a lot of people in like Party City wigs who were dressed up really weird. And to be clear, it seemed very strange to me. And then, you know, you get older, you enter high school, you have a best friend that's really into this thing called anime, and he gets you to start watching this funny thing called anime, and you realize, oh, that's Otakon that's happening there every summer in the Baltimore City Inner Harbor. So I was basically aware of Otakon for functionally my entire life. And it was definitely my best friend in high school, Justin Briner, who said we should go to Otakon the summer after we graduated high school. So we started planning it months in advance because the internet at the time was, I think that everyone thinks that the era that they were a teenager on the internet was the cruelest era of the internet. So to me, I'm like, I remember how things were in 2009 internet. I remember seeing all the articles about like top 10 worst cosplays, and they were all just, you know, like body shaming and like very not cool time. But Justin and I had the fear of God in us, and we were like, if we're going to cosplay, which is very scary because if you have one busted photo that makes it onto 4chan, it's over for
dude.
you.
Yeah.
We were like, we have to do it well. So we started planning months in advance. I wanted to go as a character from my favorite TV show, Avatar: The Last Airbender.
The greatest.
Which I was ride or die for as it was airing, which was, I will be honest, a very brave thing to be ride or die for as a 15-year-old, to go to all your friends and be like, this Nickelodeon show is actually really good. Because it was in that era. How old are you?
How old am I?
Yeah.
I turned 30 like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
The slight age difference between 30 and 33, like, I'm telling you, the idea of being a high schooler,
Sure,
like being
okay.
prom age and
All right.
being like this Nickelodeon show,
Okay.
you guys need to get on board for it. It was scary there the first couple of years
All
to
right.
be like, I care about this Nickelodeon show.
You were ahead of the curve.
I was ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
It's one of the great privileges of getting older is I get to see people discover
They're
that I
catching
was
up.
right
Yeah,
in
yeah.
2006.
Yeah.
So I went as Ty Lee, he went as Kefka, and
great.
we, you know, went to a JoAnn Fabrics together. I got a lot of help from my aunt. He got help from his dad because we didn't know how to sew. We just bought fabric and we're like,
Yeah.
we'll figure it out. And we went to Otakon. That first Otakon was a delight. It was like I met friends that day that I'm still friends with 15, 16 years later, and we had a really great time. And the very funny button on that story is that my high school best friend, Justin, who we were inseparable. Like, I played a lot of video games because of him. He knows things about Lord of the Rings because of me. He wanted to be a voice actor, and he went on to be a voice actor. He voices Deku in My Hero Academia.
Oh, fabulous.
He's the anime voice actor.
Wow.
Which is a very funny, like, the world is just really small that my high school best friend that we went to our first anime con together is Mr. King of Anime now.
That's incredible.
It's really great. He's great. He's awesome. He's the best. No one else could not be more deserved King of Anime title.
And you've gone on to become your own royalty in your own
Yeah.
right in the space.
It's very funny that we both ended up with deeply anime con adjacent careers.
Careers directly linked to these hobbies. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so how soon was it before you started entering like competitions or like walking runways? Because there's one famous clip we'll get to, but like, was it within a year or two, or was it a while?
It was definitely a while, because when I was in college, because I started cosplaying the summer after I graduated high school, in college, cosplay in that era was very much not like a path in any way. It was very strictly like a hobby, and also a hobby that there was no understanding of what cosplay was. For many years, I wasn't really able to tell people that I cosplayed, not necessarily because it would have been seen as really strange, although it would have been, but just because there was no context for what that meant.
Yeah.
So I would say that I spent a solid 5-6 years being not a casual cosplayer at all, but definitely it felt like the kind of thing that, once I graduate college, I will have to stop doing this and I'll focus on like my career. And it felt like a thing that I was doing because I was young and I really enjoyed it. I loved sewing. I loved hanging out with my friends. I loved discovering a new show and then being like, I'm going to make something from this. And then I'll go to the meetup for this new anime at the convention.
Yeah.
But I would say that it was kind of as the years went on and I just didn't stop cosplaying, cosplay kind of turned into something that could be a path. It turned into the kind of thing that people were still doing. I've said before, speaking to people that are a little bit older than me, that I kind of feel like I'm a junior in the high school class and they're like the seniors. Like there's a couple of people that are 5-10 years older than me that are also still cosplaying after all these years. So I get to be not quite in the vanguard. Like I'm still very old school compared to a lot of the kids. Most of my friends have been cosplaying half the time that I have been. But at the same time, I know there were people ahead of me that were also blazing that trail. And I will say, I don't really do a ton of cosplay competitions. That didn't end up being the scene for me. And I have an appreciation for cosplay competitions now that I definitely didn't have when I was younger.
Sure.
When I was younger, I think there was the sense of like, I don't want to compete. I want to, just cosplay for fun. Yeah. And now I understand that the nature of cosplay competitions in general is still having fun and is still kind of using that as an excuse to compete with yourself. Most cosplay competitors that I know are very much trying to they use it as a space to push their builds, to say, a judge is going to look at this. I want to make sure things are finished neatly. I want to use new techniques. It's an excuse for them to do their best work. And I just happen to have the personality type that I'm like, I get so obsessive about my own crafting.
Yeah.
I don't need that.
Don't need all that pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I really understand that the social aspect of seeing the same people, being excited to see a build that someone else is working hard on. I get it. And actually the one competition that I did, very high profile competition that I did, is probably the one that has had the largest footprint of anything that I've posted.
Yes. So tell me about this one competition you entered. Even despite competitions not really being your main thing, let's talk about this one pretty notable one. So tell me about the Her Universe competition.
Yes. So as someone that doesn't really do craftsmanship or performance competitions that much, I had really wanted to enter the Her Universe competition for, I would say, a couple of years because I was familiar with like the caliber of work that was coming out, seeing the photos every year. So this competition, unlike others where it's changed a little bit in recent years, but especially, 5 years ago, the expectation is you're cosplaying an existing character design. You're cosplaying someone from a video game, from a TV show, and you're going to be judged based on accuracy, the way that you're reproducing something.
Okay.
Her Universe is different in that it is a design competition where you are transforming a source material into a look. So Her Universe was started by Ashley Eckstein, who is someone who is a voice actor who voiced Ahsoka Tano on the Clone Wars TV show.
Yeah, sure, Ahsoka, yeah.
And she's someone that, again, this is like the fan and convention scene 10 years ago, but she was really passionate about how not great clothing options were at the time. And it's funny because now 10 years later, I think the pendulum has kind of swung the other way and we have so many licensed pieces of clothing. We have so many licensed collaborations. Yep. But at the time, there really weren't any options. And so she started her own clothing brand that did these licensed collaborations that made like cute Star Wars dresses and cute Star Wars t-shirts. And as part of that, she was very inspired by the kind of company legend is that she was inspired by the costumes she saw at Comic-Con and wanted to have a fashion show to uplift that kind of like creativity that you see at conventions.
Yeah.
So the Her Universe Fashion Show has been running for 10 plus years now. It came out of that. It is specifically for fashion designs, so they are not supposed to be costume pieces per se, and they can be inspired most years by things that you see at Comic-Con. In recent years, the show has shifted a little bit to they've had a lot of years where they work with a sponsor and the designs are limited to properties by that sponsor. On a I have kind of mixed feelings about that because
Sure.
I think that if you're going to do that, the designers should get some stipend, because to me that kind of crosses the line into like advertising for the sponsor.
Sure.
I understand that the show is expensive, but my opinion is that there should be like a gesture of good faith stipend. Yeah. But my experience doing the show was really great. It's I have some mixed feelings, but I think that everyone's heart is in a really good place, and it's a fantastically run show. I entered it in 2019 with a dress that was inspired by Steven Universe that was a transformation dress that was very inspired by my experience in the Brooklyn drag community, which is a big part of my social life.
Yeah.
And the clip that someone on the Cartoon Network social media team took that I have now reposted endlessly, consistently, just does very well online.
Yeah.
And I get it because it was, that moment walking down the runway.
Yeah.
I reposted a lot. I've last fall, I finally put out a long form video about the experience of making that dress.
That's right.
And I understand why that video does well, because I think that you can kind of see in me in that moment that this is a very big deal.
Yeah.
Because in cosplay in general, you get a lot of chances. If a costume doesn't work out at Otakon, you can always rewear it at Katsucon.
Of course.
It's the kind of thing where if it doesn't look good in one photo because you forgot your gloves, you can put the gloves on for the next photo. This was not like that. I had worked on this for 3 months straight. I had wanted to do this for a year or two.
Yeah.
And this was like, if the dress reveal didn't go well in this moment, it was all over.
It didn't work.
It didn't work.
Yeah.
So when I knew that it had worked, it had happened, I think that you can see that. And there were also 1,500 people there,
Yeah.
So it was a very unique situation. I don't think I'm ever going to be in that situation where something is that high pressure, maybe ever again. And I think that the video does very well because of that, because you can kind of feel that. And it's a cool dress. It goes spinny. There's a wig under the wig. It's great.
Hey, man, who doesn't like spinny?
Love spinny.
Spinny dress.
Spinny's great.
There you go. Tell me about your performance background from before video production, because you've mentioned film editing and you briefly said the word theater. I know you were a musical theater person.
I was,
so
yeah.
Tell me, does that play into that? I imagine it has to. So tell me how it plays into things, and maybe a little bit about your performance background.
Yeah, I came to theater. Well, I went to a performing arts high school in Baltimore County.
Okay.
It was a public magnet school, so we had primes. So you had to apply to get in, and I was in the theater prime. My junior year, I double primed in theater and vocal music, and that meant that we had theater class for an hour and a half every day. Then I did the full college audition process. If anyone has done the actor college audition process, you know what I'm talking about.
Nightmare.
And I was kind of like, I'm going to let the chips fall where they may. I ended up getting into most schools, and I went to NYU. I went to Cap 21, which is now defunct. That was their musical theater program. 2 years into that, I had come to the realization that musical theater was not for me, and I left to go to the experimental theater wing, ETW. One of the best decisions I've ever made in my entire life. I truly think that I would not be here if I hadn't gone to the experimental theater wing.
Wow.
I would say that NYU in general, is an institution that I have deeply mixed and maybe even mostly negative feelings about. But ETW, I look at that and I'm like, ETW, I'm still like, those are very much my people. The education that I got there as far as thinking about art in a really deconstructed way, thinking about the audience experience of what you're doing, the teachers I worked with there. I very much that comes into it to me so much more than my musical theater background does.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of more a fun Easter egg about me that I happen to have been a musical theater person.
Fair enough.
Because the thing that I have said often in conversations where I talk about my theater background is that when I was pursuing musical theater, there was kind of this sense of they teach you in musical theater about the nature of typing, because you have to know what your type is and you have to know how you are being perceived in a casting room to get typed as certain types of roles.
Yeah.
And that I don't think was something that teachers did to be harmful. It was kind of a reflection of the way the industry is.
Yeah.
So I, at the time, like being someone that was like at the very beginning stages of my queerness journey, had this sense of like, oh, once I graduate, I don't get to have my hair like this. I am going to have to grow my hair out. I'm going to have to be very like girl mode, especially as someone that has like a very Rodgers and Hammerstein soprano voice. So I was like, it's very tied up in like my gender journey that I was like, oh, I'm going to have to be a different way outside of the roles that I want to play and the roles that I frankly can play. And because of that kind of disconnect between the way that I would have needed to appear to have a career outside of musical theater in musical theater, it was one of those things that at the time was not at all a conscious decision or a conscious like, oh, I realized that I'm trans. It like took me many years. Many years later, I was like, oh, that's why that didn't work out. As it happened in the moment, it was just kind of like, well, you know, I'm broke. I need to pay rent. So I'm working other jobs. I am using my free time to dress up like anime characters. I'm not necessarily making time to, I don't have the money for headshot. Like it felt very happenstance, and it's only with the clarity of hindsight that I can be like, oh, I stopped doing musical theater because of the expectation that you present the same way on stage as you do in the audition room. Whereas with cosplay, it's the opposite expectation. There's no expectation at all that you are the same way outside of cosplay as in cosplay. And in fact, the transformation is like a really big part of it. So I find it very funny. I look with fondness on the alternate path that my life could have gone if I had said I could do musical theater. But I also think that, you know, I think that the deep connection that you can have to musicals and like those narratives, like I was a huge Les Mis kid, you know, in middle school, that kind of thing is very much still connected. And I do think that the background that I got, I think that my experiences in ETW with the nature of like thinking about audience experience of the work that you're making is so deeply tied to the way that I make YouTube videos now. It just happens to be on YouTube instead of in a little black box theater at La Mama, you know?
Instead it's a little black bedroom, I
guess.
There you go.
A little black phone screen.
Black box bedroom. Incredible. That's the word transformation keeps coming up over and over again. So it's interesting how that kind of recurs in your history here.
It
and
really
you definitely
does.
And I'd say your current work definitely reflects a more experimental theater type beat than a traditional Rodgers and Hammerstein kind of musical.
I think that the best class, probably the class that I look at in college that I'm like, I learned as much in that one class as I did every other class, was this one semester class taught by Kate Oriski, who I think was a Pulitzer Prize winning director. She was incredible. She was very like a little terrifying, like a little bit kind of no nonsense. Was just like unafraid to look at you with a perplexed expression and be like, I don't really know what you were going for here if the art wasn't arting. And she taught a class called Adaptations where we specifically were reading I think it was called Strange Pilgrims. It was a collection of Gabriel Garcia Marquez short stories. And the entire class was basically, we had all read this collection of short stories, and we, over I think 3 or 4 different kind of groupings, performances, made theatrical pieces based on these short stories. So the entire class was taking these very disparate, very kind of, some of them were very like, you know, is magical realism. Some of them were very, you know, a very wide variety of like stories and literatures. And turning those into, you know, dance pieces, straightforward plays, experimental like audience interaction things, and thinking about using that inspiration as the jumping off point for something else. And how do you make an adaptation of something that stands on its own but is also still tied to its source material? That class alone, I didn't realize that class was going to have such a big impact, but that was very much, I think about that class kind of constantly.
Growing an online audience is not for the faint of heart. For the record, as we're recording this, you have nearly 200,000 subscribers on YouTube, 128K on Instagram, and 124K on TikTok, plus paying members, hundreds of them, on your Patreon. And I think you've probably come a long way from your first few posts on Instagram. I did some digging, and they're mostly baked goods.
They are.
I found Fruity Pebbles Nutella brownies with a Z at the end.
I think about those all the time.
Fruity Pebbles Nutella brownies?
Constantly.
Constantly?
Because that was a night.
What, 2009 or something, or
2012.
2012? All right. You
I'll tell you
remember
about
the
that when we're
year.
not
You
recording.
remember the year.
Yeah.
Incredible. I found Toblerone cookies. I
Yeah.
found mini pumpkin pies. The
Because
point
we
of,
had
you know,
dessert Sundays in our apartment.
Did
so
you?
every Sunday we would make desserts. And the Fruity Pebbles Nutella brownies was like our first time with the person that would become my roommate. So it was a lot of
okay.
dessert.
So
Yeah.
it's a very meaningful brownie.
I'll give, yeah. It's,
Give me the full story later.
I'll give you the full story later. Otherwise,
This
we'll be
isn't
here
for
for
you
another.
guys. Sorry, this is just for us.
It could be. We would just be here for another 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's fair. Well, I bring it up because I think a lot of us have the same
Yeah.
footprint where you dig back far enough in our
Yeah.
in our history and you find just the, you know, most sepia tone looking things of, you know, baby faced people or a rock they found at some point or a park,
The blurry
or
iPhone photos.
blurry iPhone photos from 2012 and 2013 and things
Yep.
like that. So, you know, and it's all still, first of all, big respect for like having that there. I know a lot of people who
absolutely.
clear their stuff pretty frequently.
No.
So tell me about, like, I don't know, your relationship with social media, and you've already talked about a little bit about your decision to start making YouTube videos and where that comes from, and the kind of creators and styles you were looking to emulate in certain ways. But tell me about like your personal relationship with social media and the thing that would become the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I would also say that part of like when I decided to make that jump to try content creation, a lot of it was the circumstance of it being 2021, it being kind
right,
of
yes.
just post-vaccines. My day job that had been a really solid gig, loved that gig for like 4 years, no complaints, suddenly got really toxic in the span of about a year. And as I was coming to terms with the fact that like, I think there's no saving this, I fought really hard to try and save it, I think I need to quit, I was like, I have a lot of savings because I haven't gone anywhere for a year. I'm at a place where like if I were to ever try content creating and see if this could be a path, I felt like I had a sense for what the job would be like.
Sure.
Because I had friends that were full-time content creators. So because I talked with them a lot about what I just knew by being friends.
You had a model to work off of. Yeah.
I knew what I was getting myself into. So
Sure.
I really approached it with the mindset of like a career change of like I am in the stars are aligning right now where I think that if I were to ever in my life see if this would work for me, would be something I enjoyed, would be something where the trade-offs were worth the, you know, benefits. I think it is now. So
now.
I took that jump in 2021
Sure.
with a very kind of like clear-eyed sense. And I'm getting away from your I'm getting myself back on.
You loop around, man. We got time. You're good.
And I think the thing that was interesting about that is that because I had the sense of this would no longer be content creation for myself, where it's I like making costumes, that's not going to change. I'm going to post about it, get pictures when I can, try and remember to take a shot of the work in progress, try and remember to get a selfie. That would then become a lot more important. Realizing that I was thinking about it a lot as kind of swapping the day jobs, that like my day job used to be I worked in IT. So I went to an office and I would hang lights and run microphones for academic conferences and change projector bulbs in classrooms. And then I would go home and I would sew. So I was thinking about this like I am going to sit at my desk and edit videos every day. I am going to like answer comments and like think about YouTube strategy and edit thumbnails. And in exchange, I will still get to make costumes. So the idea that like the hobby aspect of making costumes has changed not really at all. And I think when I look back on my path as a content creator, the first 1 to 2 years, I feel like I might have overcorrected in changing it too much. And it's better for everyone if I craft from a very like hobby forward place.
Yeah.
And from a very like I'm just focusing on what I enjoy doing.
Yeah. The reward is still making the thing for you.
The reward is making the thing.
Yeah.
Like I will always be a process first kind of crafter because I just I like making things, and I also love going to conventions and meeting people. But I would say as far as social media and growing an audience, I came into this at a very interesting time when there was a lot of competition between the big social media platforms. And again, like this became my job to understand these things.
Yeah.
I started content creating at a time when Facebook and Meta was offering paid bonuses to compete with TikTok.
That's right.
Because they were very afraid of TikTok.
That's right.
So for my first year or two, I made a significant portion of my rent off of Instagram Reels.
Yeah.
And they took that away eventually, and it doesn't exist anymore. So I shifted to what I knew would have been the long-term game all along, which is YouTube.
Of course.
But I think that it has been an interesting time to be a content creator because so many platforms are incentivizing short form in such a big way. Even YouTube, which
YouTube
is
Shorts.
still kind of one of the only places to do long form video content like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the platform, it's a tough time on the platform because they want short form, but no one really pays for short form in a way that enables you to earn a living.
That's right.
Unless you're getting multiple millions of views every single time.
And tons of sponsorship deals.
And I would say that the thing about social media that's interesting too is that I've been cosplaying for 15 years. So 16 in a couple of weeks. I'm like,
where is it?
Where is it? I've been cosplaying for 16 years, and I didn't break 1,000 followers on any platform until I had been cosplaying for about 8 years. So to me, when I look back at my own history, about half of it, I have functionally no following whatsoever.
Right.
And then for about half of it, it's a very exponential graph of my audience and the way that I have moved through the world with that audience. So it's interesting because it's a big reframe when you've spent so much of your creative career being someone that gets, it's a great day if I get 18 likes on something.
Sure.
And so to reframe that, to also realize that like in the community, I am now someone that has an audience, and that like when I interact with people, there's a level of like carelessness that I shouldn't have anymore because I now am someone that
people are watching.
Yeah, that people are watching. And also that like if I say something flippantly, it's not going to reach 12 people. It's going to reach 1,200 people. 12,000 people.
Yeah.
And I say that not from a place of like fear, because I should probably have more fear, I'm just talking all the time. But more from a place of like responsibility and remembering that bringing attention to something or the things that I like choose to focus on have more of an impact.
Yeah.
And that has just kind of been an interesting journey to realize that the shifting kind of power dynamics of social media are very interesting.
Yeah.
An example that I think of is that I get a lot of DMs that I feel bad. I just never respond to them from people that are like, hey, I liked your Korok costume. I'm thinking of doing a Korok. Is it okay if mine is a little bit similar to yours? And it's like, I really don't care.
Yeah.
Because at this point, if you Google Korok cosplay, I'm probably one of the first
come
results.
up pretty quickly. Yeah.
So it's like, because that power dynamic has changed for me, I don't really care that much because I'm like, the people that are asking me this question are by and large not people with millions of followers. It's people that are very conscientious and very concerned.
Yeah.
But because I now have a profile and I have reach, I'm so much less precious about that stuff. Whereas I can remember what it was like to be someone with a couple hundred followers and to see, someone with, like 12,000 followers do something that I wanted to do and being like, well, now I can't because now someone bigger than me did it.
Yeah.
So I've lived through that shift in my own, interaction in the cosplay community.
Sure. But you've also been in it long enough to know that inherently at its core, for you at least, is a fun thing you do with your friends.
100%.
And so, and yes, there are people who maybe have a professional piece of their life tied to cosplay, but most folks aren't making money off of your Korok
Absolutely
outfit.
Not. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's very kind and respectful for someone to be like, hey, do you mind? But also like, in your heart, like this is a hobby.
It's a hobby.
It's a game. Yeah.
It's fun, and we do it because it's fun and rewarding and deeply stressful. But like, but that's not the social media stress. That's the fun. I'm gonna stay up until 4 a.m. sewing stress. A lot of people my age are like, I don't do that anymore, and I'm like, I still do that. I still enjoy doing because it's fun. It's fun to be like, I'm not gonna sleep. I'm gonna hack loose some stuff and.
I know that you only really went full time as a creator pretty recently in the scheme of things, and I want to know your take on the creator economy and the different skills you've had to learn along the way to keep, like you said, the thing you love doing you love creating costumes, love hot gluing at 4 a.m.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. You love looking into the history of these things that you love.
Yeah.
So what are the skills you've had to learn a way to keep doing the thing you love?
I would say the biggest struggle for me, for sure, is, and it's so bad to say this out loud because it sounds like the fakest thing in the world, but it's like my own perfectionism is my number one worst enemy, period.
Well, you were just saying, like things go out to not just 12 people anymore. They go out to a lot of people. And so I'm sure there's that added pressure of like, well, if I don't get it right the first time, I didn't get it right.
100%.
Yeah.
It's the long shelf life of content.
Sure.
And it's also my own, like, when you've been crafting for 16 years, I am so aware. I can see in other crafting creators' works, the corners that they cut, and I don't judge them for them. I look at that and I see someone that is smarter than me because they're like, oh, I know only 2% of people will notice that I didn't interface this facing when I maybe should have added some canvas here. And it's like, I noticed that, so I unfortunately am burdened with the knowledge of like, I really should baste this so that it'll lay nicer. And when I notice other creators not doing that, there's no judgment. It's actually I should probably cut more corners in my own crafting. But I would say, in general, the creator economy is in a really strange and interesting place right now.
Yeah.
Patreon put out a really interesting study, I want to say a couple months ago, about the state of the creator economy.
Yeah, Jack Conte puts out a new one like every year.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the one that they put out recently was super interesting, talking about the fact that, like, follows don't really mean anything anymore across all platforms.
They don't, especially not with like Reels and TikTok.
Yes, because most consumption of social media is on recommendation algorithms.
That's right.
Which is a very different kind of focus. So one of the things that I have been thinking about really in the last 6 to 8 months, I kind of accidentally took a big break from long form YouTube because I was really depressed and trying to figure out what I was doing with my life.
As we all get from time to time.
It all happens, and the good news is that my depression mania is like, I rearranged my entire living room, so now I have an extra closet to put cosplays in.
Incredible.
So it's like ultimately productive, I guess. But it's a thing where like I am very good at, I think a strength of mine is that I make content with really good retention, which I can see in my analytics, but I still struggle with the long form YouTube packaging because it is very different to make a video that someone will keep watching once they're already watching it on a recommendation algorithm like TikTok, Shorts, Reels, versus making a long form video that someone will choose to click with the packaging of the title, thumbnail, and first 10 seconds, first 30 seconds, first 5 minutes. That to me, I have not even done poorly at it, but it's like that's where I know that I'm still trying to find things that the long form recommendation algorithm of YouTube serves to people and that people click through on.
Yeah.
It's very different skill sets. And the thing that also I think about a lot as far as creator economy is that, like, when I hear YouTubers sometimes say like, oh, this is the hardest job in the world, but it's also the most rewarding, disagree. I think that the hardest job in the world but most rewarding is running a Patreon. Like, I love running my Patreon. Yeah. It is so rewarding. It is so fun. It is so enjoyable. Every time that I'm doing Patreon rewards, like I do live streams for my members, I do like Polaroid sets, and I do on my high tier, I have like little custom crafts out of like scraps from the projects that I've made.
Cool.
Like running my Patreon is great. No notes. It is very much like that aspect of the creator economy I think is so cool and so fun. And it's interesting to see Patreon as a platform continue to grow, and that so many people still put, you know, cumulatively, you think about, like, I spend, I want to say $20-$30 a month over all of the different $1 here, $5 here across different creators. And it's interesting that in our time of subscription fatigue, Patreon is still going so strong because of that kind of like individualized not attention,
personalized.
Yeah, it's like a connection with a creator, and it's also really there isn't the obfuscation of like a Watcher or any of these streaming services that have really struggled to like find footing. It's very interesting, and it has been interesting seeing Patreon continue to grow. I hope it does continue to grow, and I think that I don't know where I was going with that, but
I think you're getting at something that I also believe in, which is I think subscription fatigue, yes, but also I think people more than ever, maybe our generation, maybe even younger than us, we've been fed a certain style of content consumption for like our whole lives, which is, you don't own anything, everything is advertised to you. It's all fleeting. There's a certain level of like, there's no ownership. I mean, obviously, I work for Audio Technica.
Yeah.
Here at Audio Technica, like we're all about analog. We're all about like you get a record player and you buy records and you play them on the record player and it's your collection. I think Patreon gets at that in a way where it's like these are your creators. These are the people that you specifically are helping create the work. You're
100%.
funding the work.
Yes.
And so there's inherently a connection between the audience and the person making the work.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I think it's going to continue going strong because at its core, it's people feel ownership.
Yes.
It's important.
And I think it also is like why I have no kind of worries about like the future of cosplay. First of all, I just don't, because I think it's still going strong and is going to probably turn into something weird that I can't predict in 10 years, but it's already grown so much in 15 years. But I think that the thing that I do as far as like making things with your hands, I think that that is such a universal thing that people are going to enjoy. That is something that's so, not to say evergreen in a business way, but evergreen in a genuine way, where it's like there is always going to be something really special about making things with your hands, about creating something physical, about having a physical object that you can hold and say, this is something that I made, that I put time into, and now I get to have it around. That's why I cosplay. That's why I put that's why my projects balloon to end up being like way bigger than they ever are, because I don't wear costumes once and then send them to the thrift store. I make costumes knowing that I could be wearing them for 5-10 years.
Right.
And it's great. I love making things with my hands. It's the best.
Hell yeah. Lizard, let's talk fabric.
Ooh, yeah.
That's the lightning round. The lightning round is I'm going to name some popular fabrics to craft with, and you're going to give me your gut reaction to each.
Fantastic.
This could be how much you love it or resent it.
Great.
And why.
Great.
Right, so we're going to go through the JoAnn Fabrics aisles of your mind.
Yeah.
Here we go. Here we go. Number one, we'll start with velvet.
Love.
Love.
It's horrible. It's the worst, and I will work with it. It's a nightmare, and I buy it constantly because it's always worth it.
Yeah? Do you have like a favorite like color of velvet?
I really like I like a metallic velvet.
Mm-hmm.
I like a fun velvet or like a cutout velvet.
Yeah.
Horrific. Like no one should sew with it, and I sew with it all the time.
Flannel.
Flannel. Enjoy. Solid. I like the options that we can get these days. Not a ton of it in the garment district, I want to say, but like inexpensive, and I think you can also do a lot with flannel. I think you'd be surprised at what you can pull off with a flannel.
Maybe a little warm for the Comic-Cons?
Yes, warm for the Comic-Cons, but they do fun prints on them these days. So like you can cover a lot of ground with flannel.
It's true. Let's go broad. Cotton.
Oh, cotton, great, solid.
Everything.
Yes, absolutely everything. It's going to be so good in the summer. You're going to be so glad you used cotton and not polyester at Dragon Con.
Amen. Felt.
Felt, craft material, not for sewing.
Not going to sew with it.
Not going to sew with it.
What would you use it in crafting?
I would use it for backing. Like if I have a foam piece that's going to rest on my body, I would glue a felt backing so that I have fabric on my skin instead of plastic. It's just going to feel better.
Good protective element.
Yes. Great for crafting. I don't think I would sew with it.
Fair enough. Satin.
Satin, probably my lowest rank. This is my 2 out of 10 on the list.
Wow.
But that's purely a personal preference because to me, I find the texture of satin a little boring.
Okay.
I will say I respect satin. It's not for me, but it's difficult to make it look good. So if I see a good satin dress, like I know that took skill. I'm not going to dunk on it. I really have to be hard pressed to use satin. When I use satin, which I have even recently, I'm not happy about it.
Fair enough. I'm surprised to hear the texture bores me. Like, I'm
Boring.
like, we're talking about satin.
Oh,
it's like
so
the
dull.
Knights in white satin.
Yeah.
Leather or faux leather?
First of all, team leather over faux leather.
Okay.
100% of the time.
You want the real thing?
I would never use. I actually would go out of my way to avoid pleather. The times that I have used pleather, because it just pleather these days especially, it's plastic first of all, and it will shed, it will flake eventually.
Yes.
Whereas if you make something out of leather, it's going to last basically forever. So 100% leather. I haven't worked with leather a bunch, but I would like to get into it.
But you're a fan of it as a material.
I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan of leather. I will work with leather at some point. Maybe I should work with leather this summer.
Maybe this is inspo
Maybe
for a
this
new
is
video.
it.
New look. You heard it here first, folks.
Leather. I'm thinking about a costume that I'm making for August, and I'm like, should I do leather working for that? Maybe.
Tulle or netting?
Oh, tulle or netting. Has a function. I would say I use it sparingly, but you can do fun things with it.
Sure.
Yeah.
My last one here is denim.
Oh, love denim.
Yeah?
Love denim. Covers a lot of ground, the denim.
Okay.
Denim also I think of like adjacent to like twill and like canvas. And those are definitely ones that I try to keep on hand in a bunch of different colors.
Mm-hmm. You say like you've used canvas in the back, like as a backing and things like that. You use denim in a similar way, you think?
Yes, I use it a lot for like if I'm ever making, I make bags sometimes. It can
cool.
be good for like a corset interlining. It's a very sturdy material. Like what if I'm ever doing like home decor for a gift for someone, I can use denim. A lot of things you can do with denim.
And my last question is where people can find you online. I kind of said it before, but
yes.
tell me what people should look out for, where they find you if you want to be found.
Yeah, people can find me online. It's Lizard Leigh. Leigh is Leigh because that's the way they spelled it when I got born.
When I got born.
And you can find me on YouTube, on Instagram, and TikTok. And I think that's pretty much, I'm only those 3 these days. You will not find me anywhere else, actually.
I will admit, like I dig around when I'm bringing people in, and like you are very consistent. There is
Yes.
I could not find. I mean, obviously, I dug to the bottom of your Instagram page to find those dang brownies,
And
but
it's
like,
fun, yeah.
frankly, could not find a lot from before that, or
Yeah.
I was impressed.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, I think I had threads for the day that everyone got threads, and I asked my favorite party opener question, which is if you could only eat one kind of cheese every day for the rest of your life, or if you could only have one cheese for the rest of your life, what would that cheese be? And now you have to answer it.
Pimento. And of course, you can learn more about Audio-Technica and its many excellent headphones, microphones, and more on our website at audio-technica.com. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for joining us, Lizard.
Absolutely. It was great to be here.
Yeah.
A, T, 1.